Hello, it's Brian Mounts. I run turfmechanic.com and the Turf Mechanic YouTube channel. Today I want to talk to you about the grass not being green in the winter. Is there anything we can do about it? If you're new to this channel, then you should know that I have a website. I run turfmechanic.com, and on that website, I get lots of questions from lots and lots of people. One of the questions that I get this time of year a lot has to do with whether or not there's any way that we can keep our grass looking green through the winter. Well, my answer to that question is yes, there is a way, but most of the factors involved are out of your control. Let's go into each little facet of this one at a time. As you can see, my lawn right here looks fine. It's December 11th right now. We're, 9 days away from the winter solstice. Pretty much from now until New Year's, our average daylight that we get from sun up to sundown is 9 hours and about 10 minutes. So for the entire month of December, there's very little light. Now, if you look back at some of my other more recent videos, or some of the pictures that I posted over onto my Instagram account, my lawn looked really good all the way into November. It looked green, it looked healthy, and it was still growing. I was still cutting grass well into November, but somewhere around late November, somewhere around Thanksgiving, the lawn shut down. Now, there's two reasons for that. One is the sunlight. On October 31st, we were getting 10 hours and 20 minutes of light. So currently we are getting 1 full hour of light less than we were back then. We were also getting sunny days back then. And as you can see right now, we have overcast, cloudy days. So even though the sun is up, we're not getting as much light, and we're not getting that light for the same amount of time that we were just 6 weeks ago. Now, if you know anything about plants and how they work and how they turn green, plants need chlorophyll in them, and the sun and the chlorophyll combine and photosynthesize, and that's where the green comes from. So this time of year, there's not enough sun, and honestly, there's not enough chlorophyll in the plant itself. There's multiple reasons that there's not enough chlorophyll in the plant itself. Iron is one of the most significant ways that a plant, grass in this case, generates chlorophyll. So if you want to have a green lawn for as much of the winter, if not the whole winter as possible, you need to have an ample supply of iron in the grass going into the cold season, because once the temperatures get cold, then the grass doesn't actually absorb the iron into it, and as you would expect, it's not taking that iron and turning it into chlorophyll. So if we want a green lawn all the way through the winter, we need to make sure that our lawn is well supplied with iron going into the cold season. So I'm talking about feeding it before it gets cold, but as close to it getting cold as possible. Because once you fertilize the grass with iron, that iron stays in the grass for only 2 to 4, maybe 8 weeks in the cold season. During the summer, you're mowing and you're cutting, and the grass is churning through that iron. It's churning through the chlorophyll much faster than it is in the winter. In the winter, that dose of iron can go a little bit further, but only if the conditions allow for it. Here, just off the side of my camera here, I have my soil thermometer. Somewhere around the 1st of November, my soil temperatures were still in the low 50s. Maybe in the wee hours in the morning, it was in the upper 40s. But it wasn't until mid-November, late November, that my overnight soil temperatures were dropping into the mid-30s, and my upper end of the spectrum, middle of the day, my temperatures were getting to maybe 40, 41 degrees. By Thanksgiving, I never get a soil temperature reading higher than about 36 degrees right now. At this point, it never really goes lower than about 32 degrees either, because deep down in the ground, the soil is not frozen. So there's this, cold air on top and warm soil deep down, and then it makes the root zone soil about 33, 34, 35 degrees. That's too cold for the grass to uptake iron and turn into chlorophyll. And even if it was, there's not enough sunlight in the day for the grass to photosynthesize. So if we want a greener lawn through the winter, we kind of have to hope for warmer temperatures through the month of November. We have to hope for clearer skies through the month of November, because if the sky is clear, then you have direct sunlight coming to the ground, warming that ground up. And when the ground is warmer, the grass is able to continue to photosynthesize. We need to stop cutting the grass. We need to let it grow a little bit longer so that there's more grass blade surface to photosynthesize. And if we keep it longer, then that means that we're not cutting off the grass blade tips, depleting the grass of the iron that's currently in it. We don't want to deplete the grass of the nutrients it needs to stay green when it's not going to be growing any longer. Now, there are other reasons why your grass won't produce enough chlorophyll. If your soil is a little bit too alkaline, then that is going to diminish its uptake of iron, and it's going to diminish its creation of chlorophyll. So we need to make sure our lawns are slightly acidic going into the winter season. We also need to make sure that we don't over apply phosphorus onto the grass, because if we have an excess amount of phosphorus in the grass, then that's going to affect the grass's ability to uptake and use iron efficiently. So that means your Winterizer fertilizer that you put down, make sure it doesn't have phosphorus. I've said this in another video not too long ago that I prefer putting down potassium earlier in the fall as my Winterizer going into the winter. There's definitely a lot more to that, though. There will be a link up here to the potassium and the winterizing video, and probably down in the description below. What's not in your control, however, is the amount of sun. From November 1st until February 9th, where I live, we have less than 10 hours and 20 minutes of sunlight. And on October 31st, I'm still able to get soil temperatures in the low 50s. That means that if in the late winter, if air temperatures are high enough and we have clear enough skies that we're able to warm ground temperatures up, then it's possible that the sunlight is going to be enough to get that grass plant to get back into action. Now, a lot of this also has to do with where you live and your grass type. You need to have a cold season grass if you live in a northern climate. You also are going to benefit if you live further south in the transition zone, where you actually get more sunlight every day, even in the middle of the winter. For instance, if you go all the way down to the tip of Florida or the tip of Texas, those areas get almost an hour and a half to 2 hours more of sun every day compared to where I live, just because they're further south. They're closer to the equator. So the further north you are, the less likely you're going to be able to keep your grass green through the winter, simply because of the sun issue, no matter what the weather is. Now, for me, I don't actually apply iron to my lawn. I don't ever do that, but I do apply other fertilizers that include small amounts of iron. So I always get a little bit of iron to this lawn. If I had wanted to attempt to keep this grass green deep into the winter, I would have gone out and made a special application of iron probably just before soil temperatures started dropping down into the 30s. Now, depending on where you live, you might still have that option. Technically, it's still fall. It's not winter until, what is it, like December 20th. So if your soil temperatures are still in the 40s and you want to see if you can get your grass to stay green through the winter, this would be the time to put down an iron application, make sure that there's no phosphorus going down, and ensure that your ground is damp. If you apply everything to a dry soil surface, is also going to negatively affect the grass's ability to uptake that iron. Now, having said all of that, down on my website, I go into a lot of this in detail. I don't want you to think that this is possible most of the time. There are factors involved that are just out of people's control. Take a look at the link down below. There are some dedicated iron products. I don't personally use them, but I might experiment with them next year. I don't know. This could be a fun experiment to see if I can keep part of my grass green for the entire winter season. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.